Hey, what is going on, guys? It is Jemiah from the To the Window Sports Betting Podcast, and I am here with your way too early, way too soon, but I am way too excited for this college football season. So, my plan for this is to go matchup by matchup for week 0 and week 1. Take each team, break down the lines because believe it or not, most of you don't know these lines are already out for these games. You could bet them right now if you wanted to. I would advise against it. I would tell you to wait until the market moves and we get closer to game time and look out for injuries and things like that. Anything can happen. Look at the Brendan Sorsby situation and just take the info and log it and plug it into your brain and use it later for your own handicaps when you try to make a decision as to how you want to bet these teams, your team, the team, whatever you want to do. But I feel like, especially in college football and living in the South, I'm not from the South, I'm from the North where pro football reigns, even though we suck. But college football is so important in the South, and I feel like this is something that will get us through the next couple months of seeing who has what, who came in, who came out, who left. Because the transfer portal is batshit crazy. It's fucking nuts. And I've done a deep dive so far on several of the teams, and I'm just here to give you some info, give you some breakdowns for each team, their first week matchup, and see which way we're leaning and see which way we're thinking about betting and talk about some season win totals and everything like that too. So we're going to start with the game that is in Ireland, and that is the North Carolina Tar Heels and the TCU Horny Toads. I'm always going to call them the Horny Toads. We started calling them that in high school when O'Danian Tomlinson was there, and even before that, they're the Horny Toads in my book. So what I want to do is I'm going to go through the game in Dublin. I'm not going to get into any leans or anything like that. I'm just going to tell you what I know. It's as I said, it's Tar Heels against the Horny Toads. Saturday, August 29th, it's at Aviva Stadium and it's in Dublin. Clearly, it's a neutral site game. It's on ESPN. They've got TCU designated as the home team. That's whatever. But TCU is -6.5, painted across the board. So they're favored by a little less than a touchdown. And the over under, I think it's at 49.5. Let me make sure it hasn't moved right quick while I've got you here on air with me. Yeah, it opened up at 50.5 and now it's 49.5. So somebody hit it. Some the fucking wise guys, man, especially with football. The wise guys hit it early and they knocked a point off that total and they got it under 50.5. So TCU is favored by a little less than a touchdown, and the total points expected in the game are 49.5. The implied team total points, which they're not out there yet, but the implied team total is they're implying that TCU, their over under for just TCU to score points is 28. And for North Carolina, it'll be 21.5. Either way, that's the information from talking betting standpoint. Those are the lines that are out right now. Now, let's get into the North Carolina season preview. Their season win total is low. And I'm sorry, North Carolina fans, but it is set low. Your win total is set at 4.5, and it is juiced to the over. And when I say juiced to the over, what that means is they are making you pay a premium, an extra tax on betting that North Carolina will win more than 4.5 games. So if North Carolina wins 5 games, you win the bet. If they only win 4 games, you lose the bet. The reason Vegas does the half on 4.5, 5.5, and all that shit is so there's not a tie. You've got to pick a side. There's no splitting hairs. I mean, it happens in baseball and hockey. Sometimes you get a total of 8, a total of 7, things like that. But in football, there's going to be half points because they want you to pick a side. They want action on both sides and split that money. So as far as our win total goes, it's at -135. So you would have to lay $13.50 to win 10, or $135 to win 100. But not at that price. I would lean to the over for their season win totals because of the Bobby Petrino effect, and I'm going to get into that later. The Bill Belichick thing, I think, is not going to work out too well in the long run. The reason I think that is because Bill Belichick is too much like Bill Parcells, and he doesn't want to change. And you go from being a leader of men to still being a leader of men at North Carolina, but these kids are getting now. I think when you move to the college ranks, I don't think Bill expected the NIL to be what it is, but he's treating it the right way in that he's got Mike Lombardi in as his general manager of a college football team, and he's got Bobby Petrino running his offense. The price is just too expensive for their over 4.5 wins, and I don't think that's worth a look yet unless it comes down. I'm going to get into certain things on each team, like coaching identity and quarterback identity, the transfer portal, how they're spending money, which is very, very important nowadays in today's college football landscape. But look, Bill Belichick is the brand. He is a brand. He is a hell of a football coach, a hell of a game manager, but he's also an experiment. And they list him as head coach. Like I said, Michael Lombardi is a general manager, Bobby Petrino as offensive coordinator, and Bill Belichick's son, Steve Belichick, is the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. The upgrade that matters most outside of the quarterback situation for North Carolina is Bobby Petrino. The guy as a human being is a walking turd. And I will say that again, Bobby Petrino is a walking turd. He's a piece of shit for what he did here in Atlanta. He's shitty for what he did at Arkansas, but can the man coach football? Yes. So I'll put some respect on that. But as a human, you're suspect, buddy. All right. We'll just leave it at that. And they need him where Petrino comes off an offensive run, an Arkansas run where he was offensive coordinator and then interim head coach when they let go of Sam, what's his face. And UNC's offense only averaged 19.3 points per game, and they were 119th in the country in scoring. So Petrino was an absolute move that they had to make. They had to make. The way Petrino runs his offenses, he wants timing, route precision. He wants vertical stress. He wants quarterbacks who can process quickly. That's how his offenses have run. That's why he's been so successful. Tar Heel Blog's David Stearns framed the staff change as replacing a broken offensive operation, noting UNC's offense fell to 99th in ESPN FBI offensive efficiency and 103rd in FEI in 2025. And that's from the Tar Heel Blog. That ain't me talking shit. Defense, Bill's kid, Steve, you'll remember him when he was with the Patriots. He had the mullet, a wonderful, wonderful mullet. He gives it's a NFL defensive structure that he's bringing to this team. The only issue for him is you can have all the schemes you want, but the roster has to catch up. It's still a college defense with heavy turnover, and this isn't a pro defense. This isn't the Patriots. You don't have Kyle Van Noy out there. You know what I'm saying? You don't have the twins, the McCourty twins, back playing safety. You have kids that are transferring in and transferring out, and that's what you got to deal with. Especially playing in this ACC that was down last year, but I think it's gonna shake back this year. Another segment I'm going to do for each of these teams is going to be quarterback lost, quarterback found, and quarterback paradise. And for North Carolina, quarterback lost was probably the best thing that could have happened to them because Gio Lopez was absolutely terrible last year. The dude was not good. He was at South Alabama before. Bill Belichick brought him in. I don't know what he saw in the guy, but I watched several North Carolina games last year. He did not process defenses very well, excuse me. He is now gone. He transferred to Wake Forest. His stats last year, he was a 65.1% completion percentage, 1,747 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 picks, 86 carries, 133 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6.7 yards per attempt, 130.2 rating, ESPN QBR of 51.9. Who's taking his place? And this is going to be the quarterback found part of the segment. They're bringing in a guy named Billy Edwards Jr. He was at Wisconsin. He played in the first 2 games, I believe it was. It might have been the first game. This is why Wisconsin was shit last year. He played in the first 2 games, if I'm not mistaken, and just blew his fucking knee out. Over. Done. He only played in 2 games. He went 7 for 16 in the 2 games, 7 for 16, 113 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Before that, though, is what's more important in 2024. Billy Edwards Jr., he was at Maryland, and this guy's a decent quarterback. He is. He's got to stay healthy, but he's a decent quarterback. At Maryland in 2024, 273 completions out of 420 attempts, 65% completion rate, serviceable. It's not terrible. It's not upwards of 70 like a Carson Beck, a Gunnar Stockton, guys like that. But he threw for 2,881 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 picks, and a 130.1 rating. Volatile, because of the turnovers. And here's the here's the here's the thing. I'm going to go back to Gio Lopez, who they lost, who went to Wake Forest. His line, it wasn't spectacular, but it was competent. Considering how bad UNC's offense was, the guy couldn't do anything. He didn't have time to do anything, and North Carolina looked awful. It was really bad. But evaluating Billy Edwards Jr. coming in off of an injury, not playing for a full year is tricky because he only played 2 games. And like I said, at Maryland, 2,881 yards, 65% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. But the problem with him is late game volatility. 7 of his 9 picks, second half overtime. That is not the time you can throw interceptions. And Bill Belichick will lose his hoodie about it. Like, you can't do that. Local news and the beat writer for Tar Heel football, David Starnes of the Tar Heel blog, called Edwards he's the presumptive starter entering spring. Praised his experience, but is worried about his health issues. The injury at Wisconsin was a non-contact. Season's just overdone. And UNC's offensive line picture is it's a projection. They don't know, and it's guesswork. And the offensive improvement really depends on how he takes to Petrino's offensive system, but more importantly, if this offensive line. There is a modicum of a QB battle. A Miles O'Neill is a name to track. He's not some random dude on a message board that somebody's been following since middle school, like these weirdos who follow college football do. But O'Neill transferred from Texas A&M. He was behind Marcel Reed. He knows Bobby Petrino. He played with him. Limited lines in 2025. He was 7 out of 14, 120 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks, mostly in mop-up work. But the one thing about Bill Belichick is he's not afraid to pull the string, and he will snatch somebody out. And the other thing is Edwards coming off the ACL. I believe it was an ACL. I know it was a knee. Yeah, it was an ACL. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay healthy, and he's got to stay on offense. They have to stay ahead of schedule with Billy Edwards Jr. It's got to stay ahead of schedule. This is a tough one for the most important position on the field for the North Carolina Tar Heels, and they didn't find quarterback paradise. They lost Gio Lopez, which was fine because Gio Lopez was not the answer, but they didn't get the quarterback. They found a quarterback, but it's not quarterback paradise. They found a grown man with a medical chart and a brand new offensive line. And hopefully, the man can stay upright and stay healthy and can make some noise. Now, let's get into the transfer portal and the money aspect of this thing, because money is what's ruling college sports nowadays. Like I said, Billy Edwards coming in as the projected starter from Wisconsin last year, Maryland the year before. I went over his numbers at quarterback. Miles O'Neill, quarterback from Texas A&M. He gives them depth, not necessarily competition. It depends on if Billy Edwards Jr. stays healthy. We shall see. They brought in some big boys on the defensive side of the ball. They got Jordan Washington, a tight end out of Texas. He's a big tight end, and it's going to be good for Bobby Petrino's 12 personnel looks, which he's going to run pro-style offense. And they brought in another tight end from Ohio State, Jelani Thurman, and it's going to be a matchup problem if he runs this 12 personnel. 12 personnel is one running back, 2 tight ends, 12. Offensive line wise, they brought in Shaq McRoy from Arkansas. Petrino brought him over with him. It's a big boy. He brought him over with him, which is great. They got a guard, Rowan Byrne from Clemson. Young, gives them depth on the line. And one more offensive lineman from Charleston Southern, Andrew Threat. And according to the Tar Heel blog, they expect him to compete for a starting spot. So they are plugging the holes at North Carolina. They are trying. They are plugging the holes. But they also brought in a couple of wide receivers, one from Wisconsin. He's a slot receiver named Trek Kakuana, definitely Hawaiian, and Mason Humphrey, who came from Lehigh. Um, tall fucker with a huge vertical leap. And then they brought in a couple linebackers, Derek McDonald from Syracuse and Donovan Hoylett from Richmond. Depth on the defensive side of the ball on a defense is going to need some help. Brandon Griffin of the Tar Heel blog reported that North Carolina had 18 incoming transfers and 33 portal departures by mid-January, including the 2 tight ends I talked about, the offensive lineman I talked about, the defensive line, and the Syracuse linebacker. All are probably projected starters. The big roster warning is a line. He wrote that UNC's 2025 line starters were mostly out of eligibility. Most of the backups transferred. And 2 deep is still the projection for this line. And this is the problem for Billy Edwards Jr. And for Miles O'Neill, this offensive line is patchwork at best right now. And it's a warning sign. Let's talk about the money. North Carolina's got money. Always have. They always will. They are, we'll call them a paid competitor with brand ambitions, in that the logo on the helmet isn't enough and as far as football goes, they've been solid even when Mac Brown was there, and bringing in Bill Belichick, they're trying to keep it going, and I get that, but they're trying to make the brand noticeable, desirable, and they wanted to make it a destination place. They are not broke. They have $13 million dedicated to football, $7 million to men's basketball, and obviously smaller amounts to baseball and women's basketball out of a roughly $20.5 million athlete revenue sharing pool. So that's a good bit of money. Problem is, not even the problem is, they're in a dogfight on Tobacco Road, as they always are, with NC State, Duke, App State for local talent, Wake Forest, who just took Gio Lopez, which they gladly gave up. But then you got Clemson, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, and an SEC ecosystem for regional players, and getting these guys for the money that you have to come and play for a disciplinarian, for all intents and purposes, like Bill Belichick, is going to be a tough ask. Can they do it? Yeah. This year, no. And you can tell by the people I told you about in the transfer portal, you don't know who any of those guys are, man. I didn't. I did the homework and looked them up, but all those guys, maybe that tight end from Ohio State, and maybe that tackle from Texas, from Arkansas, who's going to be a big get, but getting them to come in, it's going to be a trying year for North Carolina. Do they get over that 4.5 wins? There's a path to it, but here's the problem. UNC has the hardest 2026 schedule in the country, the hardest schedule in the country. Their opponent's average winning percentage is 65.2%. 4.5 sounds low until you actually look at the path UNC needs to get there. UNC, they've got East Tennessee State, they've got UConn. All right, that should be 2 wins because Jim Mora took off from UConn and went to Colorado State. Then they have to claw 2 or 3 wins from the ACC mess while they still start the season with TCU. Then they have Clemson. Then they have Notre Dame. Then they have Miami. Then they have Louisville. Then they have NC State. It's tough, man. That is a tough schedule. And I like it. I can't. Let's talk this out. East Tennessee State, win. UConn, win. TCU, they're 6.5-point dogs with a brand new quarterback with a bum knee. No. Clemson, maybe they can fuck around with Clemson. So that puts you at 3. East Tennessee State, Connecticut, Clemson. Notre Dame, Miami, no and no. Louisville, no. NC State, no. I don't see them getting there, and I don't see stressing yourself over them getting over 4.5 wins. It's not worth the trip to the window. So we're gonna pass on that. But that is the season preview for North Carolina. They're gonna have a interesting road to hoe, if you catch my meaning, and they will we'll see how they get there. Next up in this game in Dublin, that was 20 minutes of Jesus. That was a long preview. All right, so next up we've got the TCU Horned Frogs, and they are TCU Horned Frogs. Their season win total is set at 6.5, and it is juiced heavily to the over. So they are projecting to go over 6.5 wins. I'm very confident in that. That's for me, that's a out of an A, B, C, D, E, F grading system. That's a B. They're over 6.5, but I'm not paying the juice for that. If anything, I would take them over 7.5 at plus money. This TCU team is going to be good. Sonny Dykes, Mr. Stability, and TCU is not doing they don't have to do the science experiment that UNC is doing, but the offense is changing because Josh Hoover left and went to Indiana, which is just scary. Give Kirk Signetti more weapons. And Gordon Samus is replacing Kendall Briles as offensive coordinator. And I've been watching Kendall Briles since his dad was at Baylor. And this kid is going to be a good kid. He's a grown man. He's going to be a really good head coach one day. He's making his bones as an offensive coordinator. And I think one day he's going to be really good. But right now, TCU has Samus, and he's bringing new wrinkles and new looks to the offense, according to Sonny Dykes. Samus comes from UConn with Jim Mora, and profile is more line run game friendly than the old TCU pass first. It's more of a pro style offense. Jim Mora at UConn was more of an old school guy, and he brought that program around and then got the fuck out of there. Frogs of War is the blog for TCU, but they reported that UConn under Samus, they averaged 199.2 rushing yards per game in 2024, 21st in the country for UConn rushing the football. Imagine that. And they scored 31.9 points a game. Now, look who they were playing against, but it was UConn. You know what I mean? They were the brunt of jokes for a very long time, and this offense really turned around under this guy Samus, and he's bringing this run game to TCU, which is going to not completely change their identity, but it's going to give them, as Sonny Dyke said, another wrinkle in their offense. When they were pass first, outscore you, do all that, they're going to be not necessarily smash mouth football, but they're going to be a balanced attack, my opinion. On the defensive side of the ball, their defensive DNA, Andy Avalos, he's the same. He remains that defensive coordinator. And the betting angle for these guys, when you're looking at these games, that TCU's run defense definitely improved, but pass rush and secondary consistency are still the swing points. Frogs of War, their defensive line recap said TCU allowed 133 yards per game rushing and 3.7 per carry, but they struggle to create consistent pressure. What that's telling me is that good quarterbacks are TCU's gettable on the back end, play action, tight ends, tight end flats, things like that. They're gettable on the back end if they can give the quarterback time. They might be less. They're not going to have to throw the ball 42 times a game to win games and to get over 6.5. So on to QB lost, QB found, QB paradise. QB lost was Josh Hoover, and he transferred to Indiana, and this dude was a baller, and he wanted to win now, I believe, as he's running out of eligibility. Some of these quarterbacks are fucking 38 years old. I don't know how old this dude is. Let me stop talking shit. But he transferred to Indiana, and he left TCU throwing 3,472 yards, 29 touchdowns, 13 picks, 73.6 ESPN QBR, 153.4 QB rating. Who they're bringing in? Jaden Craig, quarterback, Harvard. At Harvard, he's at 208 pass completions, 338 attempts, 61.5% completion percentage for 2,869 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 picks. Let me say that again. 25 touchdowns, 7 picks. 48 carries, 78 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's not one of those you have to worry about running, but 8.5 yards per attempt is solid. And 153.1 QB rating is solid as well, but it's still volatile. It's a production downgrade, but it turnover upside, if that makes any sense. He didn't throw for as many yards. He didn't have the same weapons or the offensive line, but give him time, give him weapons. I believe that with him not turning the ball over as much as Hoover did with 13 picks compared to his 7. That that's a difference in a ball game or two. It truly is if it translates, and it has to translate. Like I said, his volume, Josh Hoover was great, but the interceptions were definitely a problem. And he left TCU 9,629 career passing yards, 71 touchdowns, and 33 picks. But the interesting thing is the guy that's coming in, Jaden Craig from Harvard. Again, like I said, 2,869 yards, 25 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 8.5 yards an attempt, 153.1 rating. They also credit him with 3 rushing touchdowns. Frogs of War, Anthony North, they're the TCU blog guy, framed Craig as TCU's primary portal target and highlighted his career ball security. 12 picks in 714 attempts, a 1.68 interception rate versus Hoover's 2.79%. So 1.5% versus 3%, rounding down, rounding up, whatever. I just think that Sonny Dykes targeted this guy specifically for a reason. He's at Harvard. Obviously, he's fucking smart. You know what I mean? You could go to Harvard. But there's an opposing. All right. So West Virginia is throwing a little shade at TCU, and they're saying that TCU is rebuilding the offense around Craig and Jaden Craig and Coach Samus, with Craig bringing strong FCS passing stats and some mobility. I don't think it's that much, but the problem for TCU is going to be the wide receiver losses. And like I said before, their pass rush secondary questions bring issues on the defensive side of the ball if they're going to be able to stop people. So the caveat for me for TCU is you're changing your offense to be more balanced and run the ball more. What happens if you can't stop anybody and you're playing against a good quarterback? You don't want to, do you want to play catch up with an FCS quarterback from Harvard? Unless he's that good and he's got something I haven't seen before. We shall see. What TCU needs from Jaden Craig is his ability to process these offenses, process these defenses, these Big 12 defenses, because they are coming after you. They are coming to get you. This is not this ain't Cornell, bro. This ain't Yale. This ain't whoever the fuck you played against in fucking Ivy League, bro. This is the Big 12. These are big boys, and these schools have a lot of money to spend. So you're going to have to be able to process these defenses quick. You're going to have to throw into tighter windows. You're going to have to handle disguised pressures, and you're going to have to continue to keep that ball security that made TCU come and get you. You're going to have to translate that over. Now let's get into the transfer portal aspect of the TCU side of things. They brought in, obviously, like I just said, I just went on and on about Jaden Craig. He's going to be the starter. They brought in Jaheim Buchanan from FIU. He's a all-conference USA interior offensive lineman, immediate help for the quarterback to keep him safe. They brought another one for Oklahoma State, Noah McKinney, interior offensive lineman. Jeremy Scott is a wide receiver they brought in from South Alabama. They need they should have brought in more. I can't believe they only brought in one wide receiver, but they're going to need more. On the defensive side of the ball, they're trying to shore things up. They brought in Jacob Fields from Louisiana Tech. He's a co-defensive player of the year, and he's going to replace the safety that got drafted, I believe, in the first round of the NFL draft. Cheta Ofili is an edge rusher from Texas Tech. He's bringing obviously they got a little bit more money than Texas Tech, so bringing him in as an edge rusher. Karan Hayward out of Western Kentucky, a little more edge depth. Michael Short, Tion Parks, and Kalen Carroll. The last two were cornerbacks, and Michael Short is a linebacker out of Virginia Tech. They are depth pieces that will have an impact on that backside of that defense, but it's their first year. The key incoming players besides Craig are going to be McKinney, Scott, Buchanan, Fields, and Parks. The offensive line additions matter because Buchanan he was second team all Conference USA in 2025, while their TCU is replacing Cotland Deary, Carson Bruno, and Remington Strickland. So they lost 3 off their offensive line. So it's a little bit concerning, but for the first game of the season, going against this North Carolina defense that is a patchwork in progress, I think they'll be all right, serviceable enough to get by. The question for me is, and not even that, but Fields. Hang on, let me go back. Yeah, the co-defensive player, Jacob Fields at safety, which this is their game changer, and I think this is why they are not. I'm not going to say they're not concerned, but this is why they are confident, and this win total is set at 6.5 because adding a guy like Fields out of Louisiana Tech, and Louisiana Tech had a decent team last year, but he was the code, like I said, he was co-defensive player of the year, 92 tackles, 3 interceptions, and five uh, pass breakups, and he's replacing Bud Clark. I think that right there, as long as he stays healthy, that right there with the other two cornerbacks and the linebacker, they've got their back end not shored up, but they have that back end together, cohesive, and again, serviceable against the weaker opponents. We'll see when they go up against the big boys. That'll tell the story. Let's get into the money with these guys. All these teams in Texas, man. TCU is they will call them a paid competitor, but they are right on the borderline of being a Texas Tech, a University of Texas, Texas A&M. We call those guys. I'm going to call those guys money cannons, where they don't give a fuck. They're going to make it rain. They're going to fucking shoot. They're going to shoot their shot at every stripper in the strip club, which the strippers are players, metaphorically speaking, but they're just money here, money there, make it rain, come here, VIP, yada, yada, yada. They've got the money. Collective TCU's Flying T Club, I'm reading this from my notes, announced that collective operations would cease after July 31st, 2025, and that TCU athletics began direct athlete payments on July 1st while committing to maximum revenue sharing and NIL support. Go get money, yo. Like, yo, if I had a child that was a football player, man, everybody from Texas come recruit my boy. You know, the problem is the neighborhood they're in. They're recruiting in the same state as Texas, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Baylor, SMU, Houston, Oklahoma, LSU, Arkansas, and every other SEC program that thinks Texas is its second home. TCU can spend, but in Texas, we can spend. That ain't special. You know what I'm saying? You see the guys in the club throwing money, and they got the VIP room. That's Texas, Texas Tech, Texas A&M. Shit, even SMU, they got silly money, and you're the guy. Not your, but TCU is the guy at the bar, and he's still spending money, but he's not in VIP. If that makes any sense. Their schedule is not soft. TCU schedule is number 27th in the country. Their average opponent winning percentage is 57.6%. The Big 12 schedule, they open up against, of course, North Carolina and Dublin, then Grambling State, Arkansas State, Central Florida, BYU, Baylor, West Virginia, Kansas, Arizona, Kansas State, Utah, and Texas Tech. Getting over the 6.5 wins, it's legit, but it's going to be tough. Win the two bye games, which are Grambling State, Arkansas State. They got to go to Central Florida. That's going to be tough, but not undeniable. So let's call that 3. BYU, I don't know. I don't know. Bear Bachmeyer at BYU they're talking to him for Heisman. BYU is good, but the catch is BYU's got to come to them. They've got to come to TCU. Then they got to go to Baylor. That's winnable too. So we're at 4. West Virginia should be a win. That should be 5. Kansas, I think, is a win. That's 6. Arizona, I'm not confident about that. Them beating Arizona, but K-State is taking a step back, and that's 6.5. And Utah and Texas Tech, they can split one of those two. That can get them to 8 over 7.5 at plus money. It's gettable. It is gettable, but it's also not at 6.5. It's not worth the juice that we're paying for that. So the verdict for TCU, I would lean to their over 6.5 win total. The quarterback the volatility is high. We won't know until we see these guys play. I don't give a fuck about a spring game and practice. You got to see them fucking play. They've got more roster stability, and they've got a manageable path to 7 wins. The biggest issue they have is the quarterback, Jaden Craig, jumping from FCS competition at Harvard to Big 12 competition where, I mean, everybody's a fucking first round pick, man. And then the wide receiver turnover. So it's going to be an interesting season for TCU. And I just think the Horny Toads have a path to have a good year to go bowling at least. College football playoff, not so much. We saw what happened last time they made the college football playoff. They're not there yet. And I don't think this quarterback is the savior. The answer for this year and maybe next year, yeah. But the savior, no. But they will find him. Now let's get into this first game that they are both playing, Texas versus TCU. Do I trust TCU's new Ivy League quarterback and the new run first offensive coordinator enough to cover a touchdown against UNC's rebuilt offense in Ireland on the road? I'm going to say yes, but the better bet to me is going to be on the total. -6.5 is a lot. And again, it's June. These are leans. By the way, like and subscribe to the video if you're liking these breakdowns. I am going to be doing quite a few of these. It's a lot of fucking talking, but it's worth it. And I'm going to call it the QB stress test, where I'm going to go down each quarterback and give the edge to each quarterback for each team. So first factor in the QB stress test is continuity. At UNC, you got Billy Edwards Jr. He's a brand new quarterback, brand new offensive coordinator, and a rebuilt offensive line. Jaden Craig at TCU, he's a new quarterback there. He's got a new offensive coordinator, but the roster has more stability. So I'm going to give the edge and continuity to TCU. I don't really have a sample size of comparing 2025 with both these quarterbacks because Billy Edwards Jr. was hurt in 2 games at Wisconsin and was out for the year. And Jaden Craig played at Harvard. I'm sorry, but at Harvard, granted, he played the full season. So he's got some tread on the tire in a good way. So I'm going to give the edge a little bit to TCU based on last season's quarterback performance. So we'll give that. But prior Power 4 experience, Jaden Craig has none as a starter. Billy Edwards Jr. was at Maryland and had a very, very good season, transferred to Wisconsin, got hurt. So they've got the edge on experience at quarterback for sure. The turnover profile definitely goes to TCU. Jaden Craig only has 12 interceptions and 714 attempts. In the last full season that Billy Edwards played, he threw 9, 7 of them in the second half or overtime. So the turnover profile definitely edge to TCU. The pressure concern is definitely going to TCU because of North Carolina's offensive line is just really being rebuilt. And TCU is going to be better if Coach Samus's run game plan to be balanced and run game and run the ball works. Explosive passing, it's going to be even because Bobby Petrino is an offensive mind. He is a good offensive mind. It's also possible with TCU, but the wide receiver thing is a big question. And again, playing at Harvard, FCS school, moving up to the Big 12 is a big jump. Now you've got more weapons, you've got more protection, and that's cool. But we're going to call that explosive passing. We're going to call it even. Early season trust, I'm leaning to TCU. The competition jump concern at the quarterback's position is my only thing. TCU has a cleaner game management profile. UNC has a more experienced power conference quarterback, but we don't know if this guy's going to be able to stay healthy. The offensive shift under TCU's offensive shift under Coach Gordon Samus, it should matter immediately in that they are not going to put this quarterback in a situation where he's going to have to save the game. They just can't afford to do that, and I don't think they will do that. They're not going to make him have to carry the whole team in his first FBS start. So people see North Carolina, people see TCU, and they think a certain way. They see the Bill Belichick name, they hear Bobby Petrino coming in. They're traveling to Ireland to play this game, and that's why I'm not leaning on a side or anything like that. Again, this opened. The total on this game opened at 50.5 total points between both teams. It's already ticked down to 49.5. I'm still liking the under with 2 new quarterbacks, one FCS, one who hadn't played in a year. This is just my opinion. I think the under is worth a look this early in the season. And my independent read lands on the same place with 2 quarterback transitions, 1 rebuilt offensive line, neutral site travel. TCU is going to run the shit out of the ball. They're going to eat the clock. Traveling that far to play a game is just, it's tough to ask these kids to go out there and score 50 points between them with so many variables coming into this game. So I lean to the under, gun to my head, give me TCU minus 6.5. If it gets to 7.5, it's a no bet. Leave it alone. And that's it, guys. That is your week 0 Dublin, Ireland rollout game. And what I'm saying is watch the lines. Watch the lines as they come out because they came out, they've been out for weeks. And you see sharp money that can move lines very early in the week. Like and subscribe to the channel, guys. I'm going to be doing a lot of these breakdowns. Hopefully I can get my thumbnail game up to put the logos of the helmets up and shit like that. So I'm going to go get real stoned and get real creative in the editing room, which is my couch. It's right here. But and make this kind of cool looking to catch your attention. And maybe you'll tune in and get some info that is useful for you for this upcoming season. Again, this is way too early, but I want to get this out there in the space. I want you to know, I want you to look, I want you to do your own homework, do your own research, and this will help you handicapping as the season goes on. The more you know about these teams, the better. The more you know about the money that they spend, the better. Because the way this is going, money fucking matters, man. This is a farm system for the NFL now. So almost 48 minutes in after editing, we'll see what it's at. I took a couple long pauses because I got lost in my notes and shit. But this has been Jemiah from the To the Window Sports Betting Podcast with your North Carolina Tar Heels, Texas Christian University Horny Toads Week 0 college football betting preview. I will see you on the next one. Until then, stay sharp. Don't bet what you can't afford to lose. And if a bet makes you sweat, you ain't doing it right. See you next time, guys. Love.